What's going on, guys? Football is not officially back, but the Ravens are back at practice with all members participating, unlike some other teams in the AFC North. But Zach and I are excited to be back and even more pumped about our guest tonight, Ryan Ripken from the one and only Ryan Ripken Show on all your favorite platforms. Great content featuring both the Orioles and the Ravens. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on this evening, and how's it going?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me, and things are good. I know maybe people feel a different way about the Orioles season so far, but you know what? It's the nature of it. But I'll tell you what, it's a feeling, right? When training camp kicks off, and even though it doesn't feel just like football season yet, in a few weeks it's going to, and then
Oh, yeah.
September's going to be here, and the Ravens flock, I know, is going to be full throttle. So it's a really fun time in Baltimore, always this time of year.
For sure.
Yeah, you're getting me pumped up, Ryan. Jeez. Well, I mean, we've heard you talk about it on the show, but I just want you to get it out for our viewers as well. Your total, really, maybe initial thoughts on the Ravens going into 2025. You know how it ends last year. Training camp thoughts. You know, like you were just saying, you're getting into that kind of season of it. What are you thinking right now?
If I'm being honest, this might be the most complete Ravens team that I can remember. Even the ones that had the success and went on to win the Lombardi, right? Those teams in the 2010s, the 12 range when the Ravens finally won that second Super Bowl, people felt those were good teams. And actually, people would argue that the team that when the Ravens lost on the Billy Cundiff miss kick, I know, I hate to bring it up, but people argued that team was better than the Super Bowl team. But on paper, to me, it's hard to find really weaknesses. Now, there is one, and we can talk about it, but from offense to the defensive side, you have playmakers at almost every single position. You have leadership, you have continuity with so many players, and then you added through the draft again. Yeah, this feels like a Baltimore team when you compare it around the league that should go toe-to-toe with whoever they face. And by the way, when you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback that seems to evolve his game every year, you got to feel good about where they are. So that's what I'm looking at. But the one thing I'm curious about, it's going to be a position that the team hasn't worried about for, since they won that Super Bowl back in 2012, 2013, and that's the kicking position. And that is probably the one thing that we really don't know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, I like it. And it is kind of crazy with the roster. Like 2023 AFC Championship, it was like, we might never have a roster this good, and we lost. And then 2024, the roster is arguably better. This season, it's probably better than last year, like you said. So it's pretty crazy. EDC's been cooking. We're gonna talk about it all. And Ryan, the next question, I feel like I have a feeling what you're gonna say here because you mentioned it a little bit, but I wanted to get your opinion. And Zach, you can answer this after Ryan too. Which story intrigues you the most entering training camp? There's gonna be 4 options. So A is replacing Tucker, the kicking battle, Tyler Loop, John Hoyland. B, Mark Andrews' ability to bounce back or not after the rough ending to 2024. C, how this new Ravens secondary can mold together, maybe being the best in the league, the best secondary in a while in the NFL. And then D, the position battle next to Roquan, Trenton Simpson, and Teddy Buchanan.
Well, since I already mentioned the kicking battle, I'll go aside from that because that's what to be honest, we're not going to figure that out during training camp either, right?
Yeah,
That's going to be the regular season where the pressure's on. Say it's Sunday night, you're in Buffalo, and this kick's going to win the game. That's when you're going to figure out more and more about your kicking situation. Training camp's a different beast. I will say, I'll probably go with, I'm curious with the secondary because I'm always excited about potential. And so when you look at the Ravens and you look at who they drafted, who they just brought in with Jair Alexander, Nate Wiggins now hopefully taking another step, Marlon Humphrey going back to that all-pro, Pro Bowl level player. And the Ravens, for the longest time, at least for me growing up, you felt like you had those playmakers in the secondary. Ed Reed was obviously the leader then. This feels like it's Kyle Hamilton, but it's a really talented group, right? So it excites me on what they can be, and especially because of the competition. And let's not forget that the Bengals, they got some issues, but that Jamar Chase, T. Higgins combo is deadly. And if the Ravens are going to go far, they want to take away the best passing options in a passing league. So I'm really excited to watch that. And by the way, Starks, who knows? But I like the fact that the attention should be off him. But man, the upside is certainly there. Why the Ravens took him in the first round.
Yeah, Ryan, I would have seconded what I love the talk about the secondary. It usually belongs to, wide receivers, Lamar, even Derrick Henry last training camp. I think for me, I like talking about Mark Andrews' situation. I mean, the rough ending to 2024 is scarring almost. And given you're also in a contract year, the Ravens decided to keep you instead of trade you. I mean, so much likely in his continuing to emerge. There's so much almost on Mark Andrews' shoulders, and whether he really fully bounces back, whether he gets, double-digit touchdowns again, or if he, maybe takes a step back given likely continues to succeed. So I love talking about Mark in that regard because just on this podcast, I've had to defend him a little bit. And I think that a lot of people are really high on likely as they should be, but man, I love talking about, the tight end battle right now and really the abundance of riches at that position.
Can I add to that? Because now I'm curious with the thoughts here, right? Because Mark Andrews has been a staple for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah Likely is a talented dude, man. He's a beast. They haven't coexisted really on the field at the same time.
That's true.
Besides that week one against the Chiefs where Mark was non-existent coming back and Isaiah Likely put up, it felt like 100 catches, But as far as replicating it in the game, so I think to go off of that, I mean, do you guys see a situation where Likely and Andrews are actually going to make that impact at the same time? Because it really we haven't seen that over the last couple of years. And you wonder if there will be a change of the guard. But it certainly doesn't feel that way. But I'm curious because what do you guys expect or want to see?
Yeah. By the way, Ryan, that week one game, I tanked my fantasy football week one game. I benched Jahmyr Gibbs on Monday Night Football to try to get Isaiah Likely, and I got him. Obviously, everyone was very mad at me, but obviously didn't work out. So, but it looked like he was going to have 1,000 yards like after that game. But yeah, to your point, like, yeah, in 2023, like Mark was injured when Likely was going off, and I don't know, like Zach and I sort of been back and forth with this all off season. I'm more of a Likely guy. He's more of an Andrews guy. I don't think they both can have like a really good season, like you said. Like I think maybe one of them could have 800 yards, the other could have 500, but it'd be tough for them to both have a really good season. And I would prefer Likely to sort of have more of the snaps going into it. So yeah.
I just have a hard time thinking with Mark being on the roster that he's just going to disappear because of the red zone threat. But and also now too, take aside the Mark Andrews Likely battle, right? These wide receivers, this is the deepest wide receiver room probably that the Baltimore Ravens have. When have we ever considered the Baltimore Ravens to have a deep wide receiver room, right?
Yeah.
So, but Zay Flowers, talented player. Rashad Bateman deserves his flowers because he handled a lot of criticism, went through the injuries, and has proven to be another very solid player. And we don't know what we're going to get with D-Hop, right? D-Hop could be the move the chains guy, could be at the end of the season, or maybe he's somewhere in between. So you have all those options. And then, by the way, you have King Henry in the backfield. I think how Lamar plays, he's going to spread it out. And I think that's the reason why I think that also goes into this whole conversation. But, I guess at some point they're going to have to make a decision. But at least it seems like for one more year, Marky Mark's gonna have the opportunity to kind of right the wrongs, and heck, he's gonna have the first game of the season. I think we're talking about fantasy or moments. Doesn't it feel like Mark's gonna have a redemption in week one?
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, that would be awesome. An opening drive, Andrew's touchdown against the Bills would be chills.
Heck yeah. I love what you were saying though about the wide receiver group. Like, I like to think of it as, just a loaded, maybe even a basketball team. There's only one ball, right? Not everyone can shoot all the time. So Lamar and the way that he was playing last year, getting everyone involved, and yet still Andrews has double-digit touchdowns. Zay is a 1,000-yard receiver, and Henry is just snapping off every time. So if you factor into it that likely is apparently getting, more touches or more looks, and then D-Hop gets added in the mix, it is just it's so dangerous, yet like there's no one I want more trusted with it than Lamar Jackson right now.
Yeah. New era, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's ready.
Yeah. This wide receiver core definitely, I would say, rivals, maybe is a little better than the 2012 one. The past, first stint of Lamar's career, I was talking about, like, they need to have the same receiver core they had in 2012 with, Bolden, a nice possession guy, Torrey Smith, take the top off. Jacoby Jones kind of could do it all. And, obviously was one of the best returners we've ever seen. But yeah, what's our next topic, Zach?
Next one. Again, this kind of goes back to what you first said. So maybe we can switch it up, but you can also touch on more. The Ravens roster looks absolutely stacked, but which position group are you most concerned about and would like to see make strides in camp? Like you said, kickers, we can't really tell about in camp. So what do you think for everyone else?
Well, I'm hoping the long snapper does well. Nick Moore, he's a friend of mine. So if Nick,
oh, nice.
Well, I'm watching out what's happening here with Nick. Let's help the rookie out here, But overall, honestly, what I always find fascinating, or at least what makes the Ravens, and we're going to have answers, or the regular season has to happen, right? Like that has to happen for us to get a glimpse. But I want to kind of see what the evolution of the offensive line will continue to be outside of guys like Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley. Are you going to see a next step forward from what you saw last year? Which, again, remember in the beginning, it was the criticisms of guys like Fulele constantly, right? The offensive line does a lot of the dirty work. And for the Baltimore Ravens in general, I would just take it to the defensive side. The big name guys, but who can help control the trenches? Because what do the Ravens want to do? They want to be dominant at the line of scrimmage. And so I feel like we talk about the skill position players, we talk about the secondary, but playing in the AFC North and playing in this division, you look at teams and it's really up front. And so it's not that I'm jumping up and down or I'm concerned, because Lamar helps with so many issues on the offensive side. And the Ravens typically stop the run extremely well. But the other part with what I'm saying in the trenches, I just like being around the line of scrimmage. Pass rush would be the other one, right? So I just think everything around the line, I know it's not a specific position, so to speak, but I always like to see the developments there, because games, in my opinion, really can be won and lost on the offensive and defensive side based on how your guys are doing up front. So that's what I really want to watch and see, another player with pass rushing. Do we see a step forward? Odafe is a guy that fascinates people, right? But can you put it all together? Mike Green, obviously, high pick, high draft capital. What does he bring to the table? So all those little things, but it's hard to adjust at the NFL level, it really is. So I just like to see the guys that don't get the credit. I like to give them credit because those, if they aren't good, the Ravens, I don't care how good your secondary is, I don't care how great your quarterback is, it's going to make it for a tough season.
Yeah, and like I remember there being a lot of chatter right after the Super Bowl about the Eagles, like dominant O line and dominant D line. The Chiefs couldn't do anything. And, I always say this, and especially last offseason, we were concerned about the O line. Ended up working out pretty well. Rosengarten was great.
Yeah.
A lot better than, most rookie second round tackles would be. But, you go back to 2019 and that O-line had Orlando Brown, who was playing really, really well. Ronnie Stanley, pre-injury. Bradley Bozeman, Marshall Yanda. Like,
Ooh.
maybe 2 Hall of Famers with a couple other Pro Bowl guys. Skill positions were not even good. Like, not that great. You had Mark Ingram and, like, Hollywood Brown and Miles Boykin. And the offense was dominant. And that's always what I go back to. Like the O-line, in my opinion, matters more than anything. I remember Tom Brady was on the Herd last offseason, and he was like, offensive line besides quarterback, hands down, is the most important part of the whole entire team. So that's how I feel about it. I agree with you, Ryan. And like same goes for the D line, right? Ravens haven't really had the pass rush that you would like to see since like Suggs and Doomerville. So, maybe with Mike Green and a breakout from Oweh, it could be really good again. Who knows? So definitely both sides of it are really exciting though.
And I want to add that another position battle that we mentioned was Roquan and whoever's next to him, right? Simpson had some struggles. Chris Board comes in and kind of patches him up, but it was a Band-Aid. He signs away. If it's Buchanan now or Simpson coming back into it, I know there's some more undrafted guys maybe that were
your guy Jay Higgins.
Yeah, my guy. But I don't know. I'm a little concerned about that. I think D-line, I totally agree with you. I think losing Michael Pierce sucks, and the basic gap really that we're going to be losing in a Michael Pierce is a little nerve-wracking to me, and especially given if your main nose tackle guy is out, then if the next level of it in a Simpson or Buchanan is also not A+ perfect, then I'm starting to get a little more worried. So, I mean, I don't know. I think the linebacker group is a little tidbit too.
I think that like of the groups, right? Because we're about saying what were you most interested with? I'm just always interested with the dirty work because of, we just mentioned all those points. But linebackers actually, if we're looking at maybe that one piece where you're questioning is because when you look at Roquan, and look, I'm not buying the reports of being, he was a step slow and the anonymous thing. Miss me with that. And if he was, I'll still live with that. Why? Because Roquan brings intangibles to this team that you can't quantify. And I think he's still going to go out there and be a very solid player, but it's the depth behind him, right? So I think that's the part, the depth behind him, the one next to him. How do you cope with that, right? And I think that'll be very, very interesting to see. And I think for Zach Orr, I really love the fact that they do have a guy like Roquan in the middle of the field. That definitely helps settle things in. But we know this, and we've seen it in the past. Teams are going to exploit if they feel like there's a weakness, and if there's going to be a issue in the armor for the Baltimore defense, I think they're going to shore up the defensive line. They always seem to do that. But what did they pick on in past years? They picked on the linebackers if they felt it was a problem. So I think that is definitely a battle or a situation to monitor, no doubt.
Yeah, the last, that year of Queen and Roquan, it was just insane to have two guys of that caliber.
We were spoiled. We didn't know it.
Yeah, like
that was
Roquan playing the mic, just Queen being able to just sprint at the quarterback through the A gap on 3rd and 10 was crazy. And I mean, like Trenton Simpson, you would think would be even more freakish in that scenario, but obviously he just needs to get the coverage down and the run gaps down. I know they signed Jake Hummel from the Rams, sort of maybe that Chris Board replacement in case Buchanan and Simpson both can't play again. But like, I think you could if you want to look at this in like the glass half full, Trenton Simpson could be like really, really good. Like he's like 6'2", 6'3", really quick. Him and Roquan together could be nasty if he's able to get it together. But yeah, Zach, back to both of your guys' points about the D-line, the loss of Michael Pierce. I feel like that hasn't even really been talked about enough in like Ravens media. I will say Travis Jones was playing really banged up all last year. So having him healthy will be nice. But like you mentioned, Zach, if Travis goes down, you got John Jenkins playing 25, 30 snaps a game. And I don't know how we feel about that. Obviously, the run defense was really, really good all year. But in the Bills game in the divisional, it actually kind of was bleeding a little bit.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how they start there. But like, I'm also just so excited about the secondary. Like I remember I was watching the Mina Kimes show, and she was talking about if there was one weakness on the Ravens defense, she was like, we don't know how good or bad Chidobe Awuzie is going to be on the outside. And a few days later, they signed a Jair Alexander, and it's like, oh, like there's no issues now. Granted, it'd be even more exciting if our Darius was still there, but the secondary, like, I let myself get a little too optimistic sometimes in terms of like players, I would say. And, thinking about that secondary together, I'm like, why couldn't it be one of the best ever? Like if they all stay healthy.
If you can have corners and that you can depend on, like this is the exciting part, right? If you have corners that you can not say put on an island all the time, but you're not worried about his liability. And Starks can develop into maybe being a ball hawk or being out there. And you can allow Kyle Hamilton to truly do what he does best. And that is just to wreak havoc and make an impact, whether it's at the line of scrimmage. Obviously, he can make a play deep in the secondary. But imagine you allow one of the best football players to go out there and have more free reign to do what he wants to do. That to me is like the exciting part. And that's adding Jair, and is this going to be the one that the all pro that we've seen top of the game? I think I'm not going to jump as far to say that because we just don't know injuries.
Yeah.
However, I'm buying that we are going to get a pretty darn good version of that. And as long as he's on the field, why can't you feel that this is one of the best secondaries that we've seen? You know what we want to see too? We want to see turnovers. We want to see them go get
Great
the
point.
ball. And if you can allow your playmakers then to do that, and that's I like to say in baseball, when you identify what your strengths or your weakness is, and then you talk about how your strengths can outweigh your weakness. Well, we always talk about you have a really good pass rush that can help your secondary. But what happens if you have even a solid to average, above average pass rush? Not even elite, but you have a really, really strong secondary. That's daunting. That's really daunting for teams, and so that's the possibilities. But one thing's for sure, Baltimore, they've been known to turn teams over. That's been the MO for teams. But last year wasn't necessarily that. And they're going to need to do that. Like this is a team that's got to make an impact by forcing more turnovers. And I think they have the players to do that. So that's what I'm hoping. I want to see more turnovers on the defense this year and have the bank rocking once again.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's like 1, maybe 2 turnovers in Lamar's playoff games total. Like that's really bad. So, and Marlon talked about that. Like he was like, defense has been pretty solid in the playoffs, but we haven't forced turnovers, and he mentioned that. So that was good to see too. Okay, Ryan. So in terms of the Ravens draft class, we've talked about Starks and Green a little. Out of all the rookies, is there one guy you are most excited to see in like the preseason and camp? Is it Starks? Is it someone in the 5th or 6th round? Who you got?
Well, so you mentioned Buchanan, and I actually got a chance to talk to him briefly. Going back right after the draft,
Cool.
right?
Yeah.
And he was very quiet, also extremely talented, like as an artist. We were looking up some of his
Really?
artwork. It was really
Whoa.
cool. And I
Dang.
always like to get a picture of who guys are behind the scenes, right? What is the player behind? And I think that would probably just from seeing he wasn't and not everyone likes media, by the way, right? Not everyone wants to be as talkative, but I liked his demeanor, so I just like to go off of that specifically. I'm excited to see, can this be a fit? We talk about a need. There's a need. And I like how he handles and carries himself. That was one thing that if that was one thing that would jump out to me just to start, that would be one guy. And I'm even going through the list again because now I'm blanking. I had a chance to talk to a couple of the guys, and the Carson, that's who it was, Carson
Oh
Vincent.
yeah.
Personality, man. He brought a lot of energy. Now, as we know, I'm not going to have the expectations because he was one that was saying he made you want to run through a wall talking to him.
Oh.
No doubt about it with Carson with that. But the adjustment level as an offensive lineman, I feel like offensive line is such a crapshoot too
Yeah.
in the NFL, right? Like you can get value in the mid rounds, right, where he's taken. So you can see. I think that obviously those would be two guys just from a personal experience that I'm really curious about. And then obviously, like, probably the most pressure is going to be on Tyler Loop because first kicker ever drafted in the history of the Ravens. And you are coming in to a situation where I know Baltimore fans last year are sitting there going, well, what was that with Tucker? And obviously a whole lot going on. But one thing that Ravens fans had not had to worry about for 12 years has been what the rest of the NFL has had to worry
Yeah.
about every single year. And that's dependable kicking, consistent kicking. And I just really am hoping the best for him psychologically because all eyes are going to be on Tyler Loop of all the rookies, in my opinion, because of the situation that he's kind of being brought into.
Yeah, that makes me nervous for him. I mean, sure, preseason, if he were to be kicking a little, that can be some mental good notes for him. But I mean, when you mentioned Sunday night and it comes
Yeah.
to 50-yarder that you got to kick out there. I mean, oh my goodness, that is just incredible pressure. And I do hope the best for him. I think that given, even the start of last year with how the offensive line was kind of weird and play and poor, and then defensively, we got into a groove, but early on, people were calling for Zach Orr's head. We get so extreme in the beginning. So if someone like Loop goes out there and it's Sunday night and he misses, the second one he takes, it's not a chip in, it's not 30 yard. He misses like a 48, something like that.
Yeah.
Do the fans pour onto him in anger and it becomes, an issue? That's just what maybe I'm thinking too far ahead, but I'm just kind of lost in the pressure in that aspect for him.
Yeah, I mean, you guys remember, and if you don't, that's okay, because now I was looking up how long ago this was. This was 9 years ago. This kicker was drafted. There was a kicker named Roberto Aguayo. You
Yeah.
guys remember him at all?
Yeah.
But so Roberto was considered the best college kicker, the best. Like this guy is going to be nails in the pros. And what happened? The Tampa Bay Bucks took him in the second round because they thought he was going to be that guy, right? So like when you hear that, you're like, damn,
Yeah.
for second round.
Woo.
And yes, there's some other kickers in history of the NFL. We can say that for a different time. But what happened? Well, the fact that if you weren't aware of Aguayo before, you're not going to be aware of him now until I brought it up because the pressure that we just talked about, it got to him. He went from being the most efficient, prolific college kicker of that time to being a nobody in the NFL. and lost his job. And kicking that's probably I'd have to equate that with baseball. It's going to be the most mental because there's going to be other variabilities. If there's a bad snap, you got to be able to not lose your focus. The pressure itself of 70,000 people screaming at you, and then also knowing that the fate of a game is in your hands. So it's like a combination of like golf standing over a ball and then baseball being like, well, dang, I'm trying to hit this thing. So that mental side is no joke. I just wanted to use that example. Second round kicker, best in college.
That was awesome.
Never heard from as being a efficient NFL kicker.
Ooh. That is crazy. And my last thought here, just staying on special teams, I'd say LaJohntay Wester. I felt crazy last year because no one else was talking about it, but I was like, Tylan Wallace, love him, makes a ton of plays. I'm like, Tylan Wallace is not catching the ball. Like, it keeps bouncing to like the 4-yard line when he could have caught it at the 20. And I remember Harbaugh at a presser was like, I think Zach, you told me this. Harbaugh was like, yeah, I want a returner. Like, he even said that before the draft. And Wester, I think, had the highest or second highest PFF grade for returning in college football. So hopefully just he catches all the punts in preseason and he's a solid returner all year. That's the rookie that I'm looking at this August.
Heck yeah.
Go Buffs, baby.
Yeah. Go Buffs. Yeah. So yeah, that's all we had for you guys today. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure everyone knows who you are and what you do, but just in case, let the viewers know where they can find you.
Well, if you're going to find out, it's a really big world. And, so a lot of people probably have no idea. But if you do, it's very kind of you guys. But so it's just at Ryan Ripken Show if you want to follow along. I played professional baseball. A lot of the Orioles guys were my teammates and then got into the media space and cover everything, football, baseball, one-on-one interviews. And, yeah, just check out that Ryan Ripken Show. But I love being able to do things like this. So, whenever you guys need me during the season, I'm glad that you come back and join the Charm City sideline and we'll talk some shop.
Heck yeah, dude.
Awesome. We appreciate it so much. And make sure to like the video, guys, hit the subscribe button, and we will put all Ryan's stuff in the description. Peace.